You're standing by the door, keys in your hand, and your dog is already spinning in circles. You didn't say a word, but somehow he knew. We do this every single day. We talk to our pets, we swear they understand us. And in small ways, they do. But for all of human history, we've dreamed of something bigger, not just sensing what an animal feels, but understanding what it's saying. A real conversation, words, back and forth. And for the first time ever, we might actually be close. To know if we can ever truly talk to animals, though, we have to answer a much stranger question first. What if they've been talking this whole time, and we just couldn't hear it? The wish is old. Almost every culture has a myth about it. A king who understood the language of birds, a saint who preached to wolves, a hero who could speak to beasts. We've always felt that the silence between us and them was a wall, just waiting to be broken. So in the 20th century, we finally tried. Properly, scientifically, but we made one deeply human assumption. We assumed that if an animal was smart enough, it could learn to talk like us. In 1966, two researchers at the University of Nevada, Alan and Beatrix Gardner, raised a young chimpanzee named Washoe and taught her American Sign Language. She became the first non-human ever to learn it. Then, in 1972, a scientist named Francine Patterson began signing with a gorilla named Koko. Over the years, Koko reportedly learned around 1,000 signs. She seemed to ask for things, to joke, to grieve when her pet kitten died. And a few years later, Irene Pepperberg sat down with a gray parrot named Alex. Not to make him mimic sounds. Every parrot can do that, but to test whether he actually understood them. What Alex did stunned people. He could name colors, count objects, tell you which of two things was bigger, and once, shown a tray with no matching items, he produced a concept almost no animal was thought to grasp, the idea of none. Zero. Nothing. And there's one detail nobody who studied him ever forgot. On the last night of his life, Alex said the same thing to Pepperberg that he said every evening before she left the lab. "You be good. See you tomorrow. I love you." By morning, he was gone. We don't know if he understood the words, but he chose those ones. For a moment, it felt like the wall was finally coming down. But it wasn't that simple. Critics argued the animals were just reading our cues, chasing rewards, handing us the answers we wanted to see. And even at their very best, Koko and Alex and the signing chimps were doing something remarkable, but small. They were learning fragments of our world. We had spent decades asking a single question. Can they learn to speak human? Maybe that was the wrong question all along. Because while most scientists were busy trying to teach animals to talk like us, a few quietly started doing the opposite. They started to listen. In the deserts of the American Southwest, a biologist named Kon Slobodchikov spent more than 30 years studying something most people walk straight past: the squeak of a prairie dog. To us, it's just noise. One little alarm chirp. But when he recorded those calls and slowed them down, he found something astonishing. The prairie dogs weren't only screaming danger, they were describing it. Their calls seemed to encode whether the threat was a hawk, a coyote, or a human. How big it was, what color it was wearing, how fast it was moving towards them. A tiny rodent, standing at the mouth of its burrow, was broadcasting a sentence. And it wasn't alone. Decades earlier, Carl von Frisch had cracked the dance of the honeybee, a looping, waggling figure eight that tells the hive the exact direction and distance to a field of flowers. A map, danced in the dark. He won a Nobel Prize for it. Whales sing songs that travel across whole oceans with regional dialects that drift and change over time. Elephants rumble at frequencies too low for human ears. Dolphins appear to call each other by something very much like names. The animals were never silent, they never had been. The problem was us. We'd been standing in a room full of conversations. And we didn't speak a single one of the languages. So, how do you learn a language with no dictionary, no teacher, and millions of hours of sound you can't begin to sort through? For almost all of history, you simply couldn't. But something just changed. For decades, we had the recordings. What we didn't have was anything capable of listening to all of them at once. Until now. Off the coast of the Caribbean island of Dominica, a team called Project CETI is doing something that would have sounded like pure fantasy a generation ago. They've wired an entire community of sperm whales for sound, drones, underwater microphones, gentle robotic tags, capturing the rhythmic bursts of clicks the whales use to talk, called codas. Then they feed all of it into artificial intelligence. Think of it as a kind of ChatGPT, trained not on human text, but on whale. And patterns started to surface. In 2024, researchers at MIT working with the project found that sperm whale codas aren't random at all. They have structure, something like a phonetic alphabet, building blocks that combine and shift depending on the context of the conversation. Some clicks even carry sounds resembling the vowels in human speech. Meanwhile, another group, the Earth Species Project, built something even broader. The first large AI model designed to understand animal sound itself. Point it at a recording and it can identify the species, the individual's sex, even its stage of life. It's learning, in a sense, to read across the whole tree of life at once. Their mission fits into one quiet, staggering line. More than 8 million species share this planet with us. And we understand the language of exactly one. For the first time, that might be about to change. Not because the animals learned to speak to us, but because we finally built something that could listen. And yet, here's where the whole story turns one last time. Because even if we decode every click, every chirp, every low rumble, there's a deeper question hiding underneath all of it. Is any of it really language? When you speak, you can take a handful of words and rearrange them into infinite new thoughts. You can talk about yesterday, about a place you've never been, about something that doesn't even exist. That open-endedness, the ability to say something that has never once been said before, may turn out to be stubbornly, uniquely human. A prairie dog can describe the coyote standing in front of it. But can it tell a story about the coyote from last spring? Can a whale wonder? We honestly don't know yet. It's entirely possible that we'll translate animal communication perfectly and discover it's nothing like our language at all, that it's something else completely. A way of being in the world that will never quite fold into words. Which brings us back to the door. To your dog, spinning in circles, watching you reach for your keys. Maybe the dream was never really about turning animals into little people who could chat with us. Maybe it was about finally becoming humble enough to listen and to accept that understanding someone truly doesn't always need the same words, or any words at all. We've spent thousands of years waiting for animals to learn to speak our language. The real breakthrough might be the moment we go quiet and finally learn to hear theirs.